Hello guys, it's Randall with Bitraged. So I want to do another update for you guys on Bitcoin. We've had a lot of requests. A lot of people are anxious over the weekend to hear an update, some ideas on maybe what's going on. First of all, happy Sunday. Hope that you're having a great weekend. And for those of you who have a day job, enjoy the rest of your weekend before you have to go back to work. But today we're going to, like I said, talk about where Bitcoin is at, kind of what's going on, some interesting things, pretty much in line with what our previous videos, especially the last one, was basically anticipating. So we're still basically on track for that same scenario, and we'll show you a few things in a moment. So I have my little guy on the unicycle here, and his leg fits in line with where we are right now. So it was kind of interesting. I wouldn't take that with too much whatever, but I thought that was interesting. So there's some interesting things that we need to be aware of where we are at right now. This situation that's going on here is really a ridiculous situation of FOMO versus whales. And what you have is whales making fools of FOMO buyers. That's all that's going on right now in the market. If you look at the order book, you'll see walls, and I'm going to show you. There's this person right here, 70 Bitcoin, has no intention to actually buy 70. They've been raising it. It was started at 40. It's up to 70 now. They keep raising it. It's basically a way to artificially inflate the market with a false hope so that FOMOs will buy in. There's another one for 12.8, most likely no intention of fulfilling it. These smaller ones are 2 to 4. Most likely those are just people who really believe this is the bottom and are trying to buy in. But that's not an order that's going to be filled. They have no intention of seeing it filled. On the other hand, what you're seeing in the sellers, or we have been seeing, is a little bit of panic coming in, and you can tell these are panic sellers based on what they're selling, ridiculously small amounts, and it's just a sign of people who are really kind of skittish. This is what we're afraid of. When this picks up, we're going to be in trouble. Bitcoin's going to drop. So this pattern that we're seeing here looks very deja vu to this here, and then you might look at it and say, yeah, but we went up from there, right? We rose over $1,000. Yeah, that's true, but it was an artificial pump. It was an artificial market sentiment, and we took a dive fast off that top because we couldn't hold that position up there. So if you look through this chart, you can actually see a number of cases where there's this similar kind of back and forth, not really making any progress, and a few times it actually results in, well, this last big dip down to 5,800 was a result of a similar pattern here of basically manipulating the market so that FOMOs and people who really don't understand charts will buy in thinking this is the bottom. So you kind of get people who are watching, and it drops down to, which it dropped down to like 92 something. All right. And they're watching the market, and they see that, and then suddenly they see it's up to 94.67. They're like, oh, so we're going back up. And so then they buy in because they think this must be the bottom, because if it's going up, then it's going up. And people just really don't understand the concept that it's very easy to manipulate the market at this volume. And that's the other thing I want to mention is volume is significantly down. Last time I checked, I think we were down to 14. Let me check here. All right, so for GDAX, we are at 13,700 Bitcoin. Now, if you really think about that, at that volume, it's not that hard for a whale to manipulate the order book to make things look like they're heading back up. And then if they can do it in a successful way, then you get FOMO's trailing behind. So it is possible that they can get this momentum and push it back up a little bit. It's highly unlikely that we're going to be able to push back through 98. And right now we're struggling to push back through 95 just because we really don't have buyer conviction. This is all the buyers right now it's dumb money. It's people who really don't know when to buy, don't know when to sell, but they're buying in because it seems like a good opportunity because somebody told them or they heard on the news something and it just seems like a good opportunity to buy. You're not seeing institutions buying right now. You're not seeing smart money buying right now. You're seeing nobody buying right now except for people who are clueless, and that's not when you want to buy. So I don't really care how many patterns people find on a chart saying that we have a head and shoulders. There's so many head and shoulders it isn't even funny. I mean, people are drawing them every single step of the way from the 6th. I've seen so many of these patterns. I mean, it's just literally like there's head and shoulders. You can draw them quite easily, but you have to understand that if everything else in the chart is saying you're going down, it doesn't matter how many head and shoulders you find piled on top of each other. It's going to go down. So you got to be smart. The other thing is, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but we have a EMA cross, and I actually have that showing here. It crossed there, which indicated an uptrend. When you have the red line, which is the 50-day. So the red line is a 50-day. When the red line is above, historically since the crash, it's a sign of us going in a bullish trend, a bullish direction. But what we've seen is when it's below, when the 50-day is below, this red line is below the 50-day EMA, it's historically in this bearish trend showing us that we will be headed down. And that has been a very accurate indicator throughout this whole trend. So looking at that, we are definitely seeing that as an indication. I've mentioned a number of other factors in previous videos, and people see things in indicators that they want to see. For instance, there's some folks on TradingView that are looking at the MACD and they're saying, oh, well, we got a crossover here, which is indicating that it's going to be a time to buy. Now, it's possible that we will start moving up a little bit just because we have dumb money that is coming in, but that has happened before, where we had a false signal in MACD indicating that we were headed back up, and that was right around 8,300, which isn't that far away. We're about 1,000, a little over 1,000 away from that, and we dropped from 8,300 down to 58 after a false signal in MACD that would have indicated that we should buy. That's why I've told you guys over and over and over, you can't take one signal and buy or sell based on it. You have to have 2 or 3 good signals. So it's important to be wise and understand that you can get false signals. That's why we look at everything. We look at everything that's going on. And a major thing that we're looking at right now in the market is buyer sentiment and the fact that volume is dropped off. And the last time we talked about volume dropping off, we dipped to 5,800, which is something everyone was saying would not happen. Not everyone, but most people are saying was not going to happen. We had a ton of folks saying we were in a bullish trend, we were breaking out, and there was indications that was possible. But when you have volume dropping off and you have false buy walls and stuff like that, it just gives you a really clear view that the market is not in a position that you want to place your money in right now. At least I don't. Now, if you know me, you know I like market structure. Right now we have an M pattern, which is a very nice M pattern, and it's about a spread of 2 days. Okay, so that falls into how much weight we can place on it. If you look, that was a W pattern, a really nice W pattern, and coming off from that, at this point, we did definitely make a nice rise before we headed back down from that. So I like to look at market structure. I like to use those. Again, it's not something you just take and run with. You need to have multiple factors here, but it is something that you can draw out and then look for further verification that that is indeed what is actually going to take place here. All right, so looking at the daily chart here, it really tells us a lot. So right now, it's important to look at where we are at. We are right on this fib retracement line. Literally, that's what we're testing right now. And I've mentioned before, it's 9,200. If you look here, the wick literally is just above that. So that was definitely a point, and a point that we're testing right now. The actual fib line is right below 9,200, and then we have our EMA, our 200-day EMA, which is acting right now as support level, and then we have this area of support as well. So actually more like that, but that is definitely some support that we are going to have to break as we come down. But really what we're looking at is breaking through this into 8,800, which is right below the 200-day moving average, at least today that is the case. If we break through that, I do not anticipate any of this other support to be an issue. I think we will fall through it quite quickly. So basically where we are at right now, we are still seeing what appears to be the continuation of our bull trap. For that to be invalidated and proven wrong, we really need to turn around, break through this area. That's really what would need to happen. We literally have to break back through our 12,000 is huge resistance right now. Then break through right around 13,000, which is our next fib retracement line, well above 11. What is it, 11,200 about. So that's really what we'd have to see to invalidate the idea of a bullish, or a bull trap. Otherwise, that appears to be exactly what's happening. Now I know there's a lot of people that want to push back up to test 11,000. A lot of people are predicting that. We do not have the volume to do that. We do not have the power to do that right now. And at the current trend that we're in, if we do that, we're only going to see sell-offs. Most likely we're only going to see sell-offs at that point and then come back down, because there just really isn't the buyer sentiment, the buyer conviction in the market right now. It's just missing, and people miss that. They think if you just draw enough patterns or enough, pictures, then the chart just does what you want. But without that buyer conviction, you're not going to go anywhere. Bitcoin can't go anywhere. So the movement we're seeing right now is false hope as far as I'm concerned, and I think we need to be aware of that. So we need to watch this line area here and expect that eventually we're going to break through that, probably fairly soon. I would anticipate that happening, and then once we do that, I really am anticipating below the 8,000 line, or below the 8,800 line, we are going to see some decent panic selling coming in, which is what I believe is going to drive us down to potentially retest our 5,800 low. Now, if that happens, that's going to give us a good support and most likely a good buyer conviction to bounce off of and head up to potentially break out of this correction. So that's what we're looking at to happen. That's what really needs to happen right now. Okay, so another thing that we are looking at potentially, and this is something that I agree with, I saw on TradingView somebody had mentioned this, and that is the possibility that we are seeing a bearish flag. And if you look at, this is on the daily, this is a period of about, you can say between the 5th and the 7th, it really doesn't matter, until now, which is the 25th. That's a long period. To have a bearish flag play out that long and if this is a legitimate flag, then we are looking at a significant drop, potentially below 5,800. I mean, a flag of this size would generally indicate a large drop. Pretty much, something we can anticipate if this plays out as a complete bearish flag. Now, there was people who saw this as a bearish flag. Obviously, from that point, we had a significant drop. I mean, it was 17,000 to 5,800. So obviously, that was a significant bearish trend, bearish drop off. I think you could debate on whether it is valid, although in my opinion, it does pretty much fit the requirements and the rules to be a flag overall. And it really depends on who you ask whether they're going to take that at face value. It really doesn't matter because obviously we know what happened and we know that there was a bearish trend. So we could just say based on history, it fits because that's what happened. But as far as I'm concerned, this one here definitely fits really, really well. And if you look at just the setup we are in, we are on the 23.6 resistance or 23.6 Fibonacci retracement line. We're right above our 200-day EMA, and I'd mentioned in other videos there's some huge bearish divergence to look at. Volume is down significantly, and we are seeing, in spite of volume down, we're seeing an attempt to inflate the market with false hope in an effort to push it up again. So there's a lot of indications that we are definitely headed down again, and some of the indications, if you take them at face value, would indicate we should be heading below 5,800. I'm still not ready to make that call. I think, again, it is possible, and if this bearish flag is the complete picture of what we are seeing, 5,800 would definitely be the high point of where we should expect to be heading. So again, I'm not calling that yet, but I definitely believe that we are at least looking at retesting the 6,000 range, and until we get there, or until we see buyer sentiment return, buyer conviction return to the market, I don't really believe that we have any ability to call this anything but a huge bearish trend. So anyone who is calling this anything but bearish really probably doesn't do any real world trading, because it's ludicrous to actually say something like that. So we're in this bearish trend still. We are anticipating it to continue down. It's pretty much where we're at, and again, this is pretty much the same as the previous video. I added a couple more things. I didn't mention the bearish flag before, so if you're interested in my other indicators that I looked at, such as the bearish divergence, please look at my previous videos and you can check those out and see what I mentioned in those as well. But definitely just looking at where we are at as far as even the crossover on the 4-hour here of the 200 and 50-day moving average. When you see in the history from this drop, whenever that happens, it indicates a downtrend. It's not a good sign in the past, and so again, if you're looking at all the factors, you're looking at everything the chart is saying, the indications definitely lean bearish significantly at this time is still. Now, as I've been taking the time to do this video, I had to pause it a couple different times because things came up. So the price actually returned to, let me see here, it was 95.60, 67, something like that. So the price has gone up about $200 here since I was starting the video. And some people see things like that and they're like, well, now we're bullish. And I think people get too carried away watching a few $100s in price change. And they'll see a few 4-hour candles and they'll see that as an indication that we're bullish. It's important to understand on the 4-hour, if you want to call that bullish, fine. Let's call that bullish. All right. We'll say that's bullish. All right. If that's bullish, these two moving averages we just crossed under are now huge resistance. So, it's going to be very hard for us to push up above that area again, especially with the volume we're at. And to push above 9,800 is going to be a stretch because we're kind of, I guess you would call this consolidation, but really ultimately what's happening as we fall below this, it becomes quite significant resistance. So the more you kind of bounce around at an area and then you drop below it, you're just building resistance over your head. So it's not a good scenario. It's not something that, definitely not a good scenario we're in right now. So the next couple of days, I would just encourage you to watch the market, watch the volume, and see how buyer sentiment is looking. If volume continues to drop off, we should expect to see a similar instance of what we've seen in the past, perhaps a attempt or a slow climb attempt back up. But again, to break through the huge resistance we have overhead just to get to 12,000, we're going to really have to have huge buyer conviction. So right now, the most logical scenario, the most probable scenario for Bitcoin is to continue its downtrend. That's pretty much the most likely scenario at this point. So for that to be negated, we would be looking for a push above 9,800 within the next 24 hours, preferably a break through 10,000 with volume picking up and pushing us into the 11,000 range within the next 48 hours. That would indicate the possibility of negating what is currently the most probable scenario. But if we push up to 97 and around that area and then get pushed off it again, all we're doing is just delaying our doom, essentially. So I don't really anticipate us being able to get out of this trend until we retest the 6,000 range. I really see that as almost inevitable, and until we see some indications otherwise, I'm going to stick with that. But that's pretty much where I am, my belief is right now. So keep watching the market, really pay attention to how things are changing, and really pay attention to see if volume picks up here, and that's going to tell you a lot about where we are headed in the next couple days. But we're still seeing these faults, buy walls, and it's pretty clear it's a false buy wall. I mean, they pulled it for a while, but they came back. So that can't last forever. It's not going to hold forever, and eventually it's going to break down. But I'm actually really liking this bearish flag. I'm really feeling like that gives us a really good indicator just in and of itself that this is not sustainable. This uptrend here is not sustainable, and it's not legitimate. So we'll see to the next few days how this pans out. But that's about all I have for you guys right now. Thanks so much for watching. If you are not subscribed yet, I encourage you to go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you are notified as soon as we do drop new videos. I encourage you to comment below and let us know what you're thinking. Maybe some articles, some TradingView charts, or YouTube videos that you're watching and found interesting. Would love to check those out. We also wanted to let you know that we do appreciate that you guys are sharing our videos. I've noticed a few of you share them on Twitter, on Facebook, and even on YouTube. Some of you guys are commenting on other videos, asking YouTubers to check out our videos, and we really do appreciate that. Helps get the word out, helps build the community, and definitely helps bring knowledge and awareness to how to read charts and understand trading. Hopefully educate, the crypto community a little better. So definitely appreciate that. Really appreciate all your support and for watching the video. Have a great rest of your weekend and take care.